Shalom and welcome to the One Pusik podcast, in which three rabbis from Englewood, New Jersey, each share an insight on one particular pusik from the Parsha and reflect on each other's ideas. Rabbinic banter, I like to call it. I am Rabbi Chaim Pupko of Congregation Ava Torah, and I'm joined by my dear friends and colleagues,
Rabbi Akiva Block, Kihilat Kesher,
and Rabbi Daniel Goldberg, Eitz Chaim, the Englewood Stiebel.
To sponsor an episode of the One Pusik podcast, visit onepussikpodcast.com and click on the sponsorship link. Of course, we'll announce your dedication at the beginning of the episode and hopefully enhance the celebration of an occasion or honor the yortzeit of a loved one with Torah in their merit. And please take a moment and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform. The more positive ratings we get, the more this podcast will show up in searches. And so just by clicking 5 stars, you are fulfilling the mitzvah to be Marbitz Torah, to spread and increase the learning of Torah. Our one pasuk for this week, Parshas Beshalach, comes from chapter 14, verse 13, Perek Yudalet, pasuk Yud Gimel. The Jewish people are standing at the banks of the Yam Suf, and they see the Egyptians bearing down on them, and they are afraid. And Moshe says to them, Vayomer Moshe el ha'am, Moshe says to the people, Al tira'u, do not be afraid. Hisyatzvu ura'u es Yeshuas Hashem. Stand still, stand at attention, and see the salvation of Hashem as Sher Yaseh Lachem Hayom, that He is going to do for you today. Ki kasher yisem es Mitzrayim Hayom, because as you see the Egyptians today, Lo sosifu lirosam od ad olam, you will not see them anymore forever. Now, before we dive into the pasuk, I can't read this pasuk without hearing Avram Fried. Yeah, I can't. On that note, pun intended, I wanted to ask you guys, is there an album, a Jewish album, that you can listen to end to end? Like every song is great. As opposed to like those albums where there's one good song or two or three. Do you have a go-to album?
Rabbi Block, which Miami Boys Choir album were you on?
I was on Mina Shamayim and One by One.
Both of those, I think I could listen to end to end.
Yeah, Mina Shamayim.
Mina Shamayim, actually.
Yep.
I was saying as a joke, but actually that would be one of these classics.
Yeah, I was actually going to say not just Mina Shamayim. For me, either Klal Yisrael, the Miami Boys Choir album, or B'siyata D'Shmaya. Yeah. Every song.
Miami in the 90s, the heyday.
Yeah.
So I also would say B'siyata D'Shmaya is one of those albums for me. In the more modern genre, I would say probably Eitan Katz Lamancha, which was his first album.
Yeah.
Which is really terrific. Eitan Katz is a terrific songwriter. Mm-hmm. And I love those songs, each and every one of them. Not all of them get the kind of press that I think they deserve. Obviously, Lamancha, which is the title number, is larger than life. But people don't listen to albums anymore. So
that's true, by the way.
In fact, artists rarely put out albums anymore. And when they do, they actually put them out song by song rather than Yaakov Shweki, the last few months, has been putting out like Shabbos material.
Yeah.
And
Erev Shabbos, Friday night.
Right. Yeah. But he puts it out like week by week. Every Friday he'll put out like a song or two.
Yeah, the internet has changed the music industry, and the Jewish music industry has followed, for sure.
My actual answer, is the Mordechai Ben David Kumsitz album.
Also great.
Ooh, that's a good one.
To me is an extraordinary album. He's not producing original material there. Some of it is his. Is it all his original material? No,
none of it is original.
None of it's original.
I mean, I shouldn't say that. Some of it is original. Some of it is his.
Correct.
But none of it is
that's what
original.
I'm asking. Meaning some of it's his, some of it's not his. But to me, it is an album that always, just somehow, it's almost miraculous how it always feels fresh. I listen to it all the time. There was a tkufa when Dina and I were newly married, when we would be cleaning up for getting ready for Shabbos. That was always what we played every single Erev Shabbos. It was like our anthem for Erev Shabbos. We just play it as we were cleaning and preparing. I still put it on all the time, and it is just, it's a little bit of a miracle. It like has a ruach to it that always gets me. It's always fresh. It never feels like, I don't want to listen to this again.
It's a great example of an album that was put out that was so wildly successful that many of the numbers on that album are attributed to Mordechai Ben David Kumsitz's album when they are actually, they were originally performed by. So, for example, if you ask 99 out of 100 people, you ask them who sings the song Machnise Rachamim, they'll all say Mordechai ben David, and Mordechai ben David is not the singer of Machaneh Rachamim. He sang it on the album.
Right. He was the vector that
Yes.
brought it to the Jewish people writ large. Yeah. I actually have noticed, this is a sociological observation, which is that Kumsitz albums like that are actually having a heyday now.
For
so
sure.
Naftali Kempa, everyone knows Shari Shamayim Psach from Naftali Kempa. It's the same thing, but it's not Naftali Kempa's song. In fact, do you know?
No, it's the opposite. Naftali Kempa put it out, but it actually achieved notoriety because it was sung on a number of subsequent Kumsitz albums.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Naftali Kempa Shari Shamayim Psach? Is that his song?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Okay, we'll have to check.
We'll
But
have to
Naftali
verify.
Kempa has a few Kumsitz albums. Baruch Levine put out a few very good Kumsitz albums.
His Kumsitz albums are amazing. Simcha Leiner has.
Yes, I feel
Benny
like
Friedman has.
I feel like we're at and even what you were mentioning with Shweki, putting out kind of old music as medleys
Yeah.
for
The
Shabbos.
Vekas medley.
There are lots of
Album, by the way,
medley,
the
lots of
Shweki
medley.
album.
Yeah, there are lots of medley albums that are coming out now, and I don't know, maybe it's just a moment where, in the same way that like Lahavdil, like Hollywood is just going to all the old IPs and doing all the reboots.
Yeah.
It's like a time when Jewish music is, maybe we've exhausted a lot of what we can do, but we can reprise these great golden oldies that maybe deserve another moment in the sun. I don't know. I'm just thinking
Well,
about like what does that mean?
The other thing about medley is that it's also a product of the age in which we live, in which people's attention spans and patience is. So if you get 90 seconds of a song, I'm ready to move on to the next song.
Yeah.
So I don't want to listen to a 4-minute song. I want to listen to 90 seconds.
Interesting. The bite
Then I'm on
size.
to the next thing.
That's bite size.
You know?
And that also touches on what you were saying, that people don't put out albums. An album is not a collection of songs. An album is a story. And the point is that every song, I used to think, and it's probably true for some of the Jewish albums, which is basically they just said, okay, here's a good one to start with, and then we'll go, that was a fast song, because they always start with a fast song, then we'll do a slow song, then we'll do a fast song, then we'll do a slow song. And we just want to mix it up the tempo, so there are the dynamics of going from fast to slow and keep people's interest. But the truth is, really good albums tell a story, and there's a lot of chachma to what you put where and what you introduce and the themes that you put in, and hopefully you bring themes back, and that's lost because people don't sit and put on an album and sit and listen through it. But when a new album comes out that I'm excited about, I will try to find an hour and someplace quiet, and I'll try to put on headphones and just sit and listen to a whole album, because it's a totally different experience than just episodic taking one song. And
I once asked Yerachmiel Begun.
Yeah.
In my later years in the choir, I asked him if there was chachma behind, like, where songs go on an album.
Yeah.
And he said, he was like, absolutely.
Yeah, the worst song on almost every
So-
album is song 6 because
Well-
it's because you've buried it, and because you want to end with something really good. And usually an album is about 10 songs, so you start with something quick and catchy, but it's not your best song, but it's quick and catchy. 2, 3, 4 is to me prime real estate. 5, 6, 7 is weak, but then you want to end 8, 9, 10 with something that people are really gonna walk
So
away
I
with.
strongly disagree with the
With the analysis.
because song 6.
Yeah,
If you remember, albums used to come out on cassette tape.
yeah.
There were 5 songs on
Song
one
6
side
is the first
and
one on
5
the
songs
second
on the other side.
Oh, okay, historic. I
So
love that.
Song 6 was always the first song on the second side, which
that's. I'm talking CD and later era.
Yeah.
You're talking,
yeah.
but that's actually
I think 7, 8, and 9 are off is like the black hole of an album.
really.
Yeah,
So it's the B track,
Yeah.
the B side.
So, for example, on the album Torah Today, so like the first song, obviously, the Baruch Haba B'Shem Hashem is like a Baruch Haba. And the last song is Chatzos Laila, which has like a very lullaby-ish feel to it. And like you said, the album is a story. Just like those kinds of things that you obviously notice them, and they're very deliberate and intentional.
But going back to the Kumsitz phenomenon again, do you guys notice, I don't remember which albums they are, but I think there's one Kumsitz album that's called like Kumsitz in the Rain.
Yeah.
And there is
Rainfall.
rain
It's
in the
It's
background.
acapella. It's
yeah.
Miami acapella.
But there's rain in the background throughout, and it drives me nuts. I find it so distracting. Like, I get the motif, and maybe like at the beginning, at the start of the song or whatever, but like, and I think there's another one, like a campfire one, where there's like crackling
Yeah, it's
fire in the
crackling,
background.
Yes.
It's just a little overdone in my mind.
Yeah.
So this pasuk, whenever I see it, I always think about seeing, because I like to play with the words like al tira'u and ura'u. And if you go through that whole chapter, you see those words come up a lot. And the idea is that the Jewish people, they see the Egyptians, and they see the Egyptians in a certain light, and Hashem wants them to see them differently, right? It's part of that motif of the slave mentality. But there's this fascinating, beautiful idea from Rav Hirsch. I love how Rav Hirsch studies words and how he explains the connection between the words al tira'u and uru'u, right? Tira'u means to fear, ru'u means to see, and they have two letters in common, the resh and the aleph, right? So the root of fear is yareh, yud resh aleph, and the root of to see is resh aleph hey, ra'ah. And Rav Hirsch argues in many places that words that have similar roots share a core essential meaning. And so what he explains for yareh, for to fear, is that to fear is to see something, but to see something so in depth and so attentively that it's almost like a little scary, meaning you're so aware of something that you can now emotionally react to it. You can be afraid of it. But the idea is that in certain contexts, when you see something, you want to gain clarity, whether it's an actual thing or an idea, right? You see it, you want to gain clarity. And by gaining clarity, you become more familiar with the idea, and it might be scary, it might not be scary, but you want to get to a point where now I really see the whole picture. Like I see the whole picture and I see what's been going on, why this has been happening, why Hashem has been orchestrating things this way. And so I think these two words together trace a certain path that we all go on when we're exposed to certain things, when we learn certain things, that we see them, we try to gain clarity, and there may be confusion or fear, but the more we analyze and the more we study, the more we come to understand and appreciate. The idea here is that Hashem is not just trying to help the Jewish people overcome their fear of the Egyptians. I think Hashem wants them to see that really they didn't need to be afraid all along. Really, you always had God on your side. Obviously, it takes time to appreciate that, but ultimately, that's what it is. It's not just to remove the slave mentality. Okay, don't be afraid of the Egyptians. It's really see beneath the surface. Now you really understand what this was all about. There was a destiny, there was a bris, there was a covenant. And just like you survived and prevailed over this terrible enemy or this challenge with the help of God, so too you'll be able to do that in many other respects and many other opportunities in the future. And that's what I think I see in the interplay between these two similar words, yareh and ra'ah.
It's a very beautiful idea. I think it reads so beautifully into the psukim because it's ki asher isem es mitzrayim hayom. The way you see them today, meaning the way you look at them and they instill fear and you see them as these masters and these scare. You'll never see them again. They'll never have that. You're going to see them one last time, and then you're going to realize that it was all a facade. You'll never see them the same way.
Yeah.
The dynamic changes. It's a paradigm shift today.
Exactly.
Right?
And actually, there's someone who asks the question, if the pasuk says you're not going to see them any longer, then why does it say, Vayar Yisrael es Mitzrayim, meis al svas hayam?
Right.
Isn't that a contradiction, right? Hashem says you're not going to see them again.
Yeah.
But then they do see them.
Yes.
But you're right, they see them.
Right, but it doesn't say Mitzrayim. They didn't see the Egyptians. They saw Egypt.
Mitzrayim, yeah.
Mitzrayim, right? What did they see? The whole facade and the whole, this frightening, terrifying, strong thing turned out to be a paper tiger. The way you see Egypt today, you'll never see it again. It's exposed, and the dynamic changes forever.
The emperor's new clothes.
The emperor has no clothing. Right, exactly that. Right.
The idea that you're saying, Rabbi Pupko, it's every rabbi's favorite movie to quote in drushes is The Matrix.
Yeah.
That's really the thing. To really...
Red pill.
Yeah, to have true clarity about life and true awareness and to be fully in touch with the reality around you is liberating, but there's something very frightening about that.
Yeah.
And I think Rav Hirsch's linking these two words together is really so insightful. And the way you're packaging it in terms of what it says about the time in which we live, I think is really terrific. We could have a sugary, sentimental, fake almost relationship with reality. And to quote the short guy in The Matrix, I forgot his name. He was like, ignorance is bliss. I'd rather be in the Matrix and not be aware. I don't have to be afraid of anything. But a true appreciation of the world around us, to be truly ro'eh, to truly see, to have our eyes open and notice everything around us is liberating and beautiful and amazing and meaningful and enriching, but also very frightening and daunting. And
yeah, the other side of the coin, that's beautifully said. The other side of the coin, and I thought you might be going in this direction when you were talking about the relationship between seeing and fear, is actually, I'll take a high culture and a low culture reference here.
Was the Matrix high culture or low culture? I'm just wondering.
Matrix nowadays is
It's turned into high culture.
It's high culture.
Yes.
Now it's high culture.
Yeah.
It's today's high culture.
It's today's high culture, right? But so high culture that I'm going to bring to the table, number one, is in the Rav's halachic man. He speaks about, I think, Rav Chaim, that when the Briskers felt a fear of death, what they would do was to study it as much as they could, study the halachos, and in that way conquer it, meaning the fear is enabled through ambiguity and the unknown. And the more you can know, actually, is a sense that you can conquer.
Lack of control.
Exactly, you gain a sense of control. And now here's the low culture reference, and that is really every scary movie. The biggest challenge that the director has is once you reveal the boogeyman, it's not scary anymore. The scariest part of a scary movie is when something goes bump in the night and you have no idea what it is. Right. That's scary. Everyone tries to make the scariest looking monster thing. No scary looking monster thing is ever that scary. What's scary is when you don't know what it is. That's scary. So the reveal in any movie is always, after that, its tension is released. Because, okay, that's the monster. So it's a scary monster. I wouldn't want it in my home.
Right. And the quality of the movie is dependent on how much you build up that fear.
Exactly.
Ein simcha kataras asvekos.
That's right. Once you have clarity, even though it's scary, but once you look at the monster, the scariest part is behind you already.
In our pastoral roles, I'm sure we can all relate to a diagnosis of a terminal illness as a sense of not comfort, but certainly relief that at least now I know what it is.
Right.
I've seen many times families that have a member of the family who's not well and the doctors don't understand it yet. That fear is its own trauma.
Sure.
It really is.
So that relationship between seeing and fear is very resonant on a lot of different levels. Beautiful.
I'm actually also going to focus on words, but I'm going to focus on hisyatzvu, which it's usually translated as standing. Like stand there and just watch Hashem's salvation, watch the divine salvation, watch the divine redemption. But the truest word for stand is omeid, and the word that's used is hisyatzvu, which is a word that has a little bit of a different connotation. The word nitzav in the Torah, which actually is used again later on in the Parsha when Moshe goes up to the peak to pray during the war with Amalek, V'anuchi nitzav al rosh hapiskav v'matei Elokim biyadi. Moshe's going up to daven to beseech God on behalf of the Jewish people. The word nitzav there doesn't just mean the physical act of being a bystander, which is really what Moshe seems to be telling the Jewish people to do. Just stand idly by and watch Hashem take care of everything. But I'm going to go up and I'm going to stand and I'm going to do something. Or atem nitzavim hayom kulchem at the end of the Torah, where all of you are standing there. You're standing there not just to be standing there. You're standing there, Avrecha b'ris Hashem Elokecha. You are standing there to pass through, to renew the covenant with Hashem.
But Hashem nitzav alav, right? On Yaakov, on top
exactly.
of the
or
sulam.
Perhaps the most familiar to all of us is our davening, emet v'yatziv v'nachon v'kayam, right? The word yatziv is sandwiched between emet and nachon. It's true and correct and right, and yatziv doesn't just mean to stand as much as it means to stand firm and to stand for something. And I think the word that's being chosen here is very intentional. In order to truly see Yeshuas Hashem, in order to truly see God's hand in the world, in order to truly see the divine redemption, we can't just be omeid. We can't just be bystanders who are witnessing events unfold before our eyes. We need to be nitzavim. We need to be people who are standing firm, who are standing for something, who are partnering with Hashem in bringing about that redemption. And it can only be, we can only ever see Yeshuas Hashem if we are nitzavim, if we heed the call, if we accept the command of hisyatzivu, stand up straight, stand up firm, stand for something, stand with something, be a part of something, commit yourself to something, be nitzavim, and if you are nitzavim, then indeed, Ru'u es Yeshuas Hashem, you'll be able to see Hashem's hand in the world more palpably than you ever would before.
So I want to just expand a little bit here, our lens, because the following pasuk says, is the end of this thought from Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, Hashem yilachim lachem, Hashem will fight for you, va'atem tacharishun, and you should be silent. And there's a beautiful medrash, it's in Yerushalmi, that says that in fact, if you look at these two psukim, this whole statement of Moshe Rabbeinu, he's actually addressing 4 different groups of people. I like this Medrash very, very much. He says that there was one group that said, let's just throw in the towel. They were totally despondent. They wanted to despair, and not out of faith, but in the opposite, wanted to just jump into the Yam Suf. And then another group said, no, let's go back to Egypt. They also were totally in despair, and they said, let's go back to Egypt. And then yet another group said, let's fight the Egyptians. And yet another group said, no, let's daven. Although that fourth group is a little bit unclear, daven or maybe argue with other people. 4 different groups. And to each one, Moshe responds. Moshe says, Al tiro hitzyatzvu u'ru'u es yeshuas Hashem asher yaseh lachem hayom. Just stand there, stand tall, and watch the redemption Hashem is going to bring to you today. That was for the people who wanted to just jump into the Yam Suf. And then the people said, let's go back to Egypt. No, ki asher isem es mitzrayim hayom. The way you see Egypt today, you'll never see them again. You can't go back to Egypt. You're never going back to Egypt. And then to the group that said, let's go fight. So he says, Hashem yilachim lachem. Hashem's going to fight for you. You're not going to fight. Hashem's going to fight. And then the group that wanted to either daven or wanted to just be argumentative, v'atem tacharishon, and you be quiet. So Moshe is addressing each group in part. Number one, I love the Medrash. It's just very unique, the way it parses the pasuk. I think it also reveals the fact that the Jewish people are never a monolith. Often in the Torah, the Jewish people are like a singular actor, which is beautiful, but the Jewish people complain, or the Jewish people are fighting, and the reality is that the Jewish people were millions of people. And there are always going to be different groups of people pulling in different directions, and it gives you a sense of the chaos of this moment. And it was a chaotic, frightening, terrifying moment. And there were people who were despondent. There were people who were brave. There were people who were virtuous. And somehow all of them got it wrong, which is interesting. Hashem had a different plan here. But I think that captures that in such an interesting way. And it also captures the challenge of leadership, which is in one speech addressing Keneged Arba Banim, Dibra Torah, right? That in the same moment, what looks like one speech, Moshe is actually addressing this group and that group and that group, and everyone he's adapting and responding in kind to where they are. So to me, it takes what seems like a pretty simple moment and shows you a lot of complexity and layers, which I love.
2 quick observations. One is that the way you're looking at it, it makes Bnei Yisrael more relatable to us, right?
Yeah.
If they're not just a monolith and they're different people with different reactions, that's really relatable, and it's easier to see ourselves as part of Bnei Yisrael in that way. Second observation, kind of random, but you just reminded me, I read a book once on Lincoln's second inaugural address, and it was a very close study of that speech because Abraham Lincoln was a brilliant orator because he was very careful with his words and he was very precise. And this book, it analyzes it like you would analyze the Parsha, and it's fascinating. But the second inaugural address, dealing with the Civil War as it was playing out, I think it was towards the end of the Civil War, if I'm not mistaken, and how in certain sentences he was shifting the listener's attention, or at different parts of the speech, he was addressing different constituencies. And it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Hashem, Siatzivo, Yehweh, Yeshua, Hashem, Mata, Kom Mashiach, Mata, Kom Mashiach, Hinei Zevo, Oy, Oy, Siatzivo, Yehweh, Yeshua, Hashem, Siatzivo, Yehweh, Yeshua, Hashem, Mata, Kom Mashiach, Mata, Kom Mashiach, Hinei Zevo, Oy, Kom Mashiach, Kom Mashiach,